We're live. All right. So, hello, everyone, friends, family, Cage community, and everyone else connected. Thank you so much in advance for sharing your time. And so, I'm super excited about today because you all are about to meet someone who I've had the opportunity and the honor of meeting few months ago. 2024 has been a phenomenal and so I'm going to let him introduce himself. Well, I'm going to definitely say his name, but I'm going to let him expand on who he is in a moment. But I'm excited because we're talking to someone who is newly added to the EVverything. And so if you're not familiar with EVverything, it's a company that's focused more around really, I would say not just EVs, even though it's called EVverything. It's EVs, hybrids, it's everything. But he's going to talk about that as well in the vision. So be prepared, get your pens, your papers, your notes, because this is going to be a great show. It's going to be fun, but educational, and it's going to be a good experience. So without further ado, I would like to introduce everyone to Andrew Z.
What's up?
He is the new COO, and he's got a lot of titles with EVverything. And so I've always wanted to ask you this, Andrew, because I hear John do it all the time. John Ellis, shout out to him. But go ahead and tell everybody your name, but also how you say your last name. Hey, maybe where your last name came from, because I've never asked you that before. But if you could give your name, your full name, and then give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, man, awesome. Well, thanks for having me on the show. Super excited to talk to the Cage community, the EVverything community, and the automotive industry community in general as well, man. Yeah, so Andrew Zabielinski. Zabielinski is how you pronounce it. Had very few teachers in school ever be able to spell my name correctly without me writing it out for them. So, yeah, my background of the last name is actually Polish descent. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's where it derives from. So, Zabielinski, man. Once you say it a couple times, it sticks, dude. So you're good.
Zabielinski. I'm good.
There you go. You got it.
Andrew Zabielinski. That's a cool name.
Thanks, man.
So talk to us. How did this EVverything come about? So what part of your career path and everything that you've been doing has led you to this move, this decision to lead this new company?
Yeah, man, I'll share a little bit of my journey and my background. So I think that, when I look back over the decades, I kind of really just started my sales journey as little as the age of 12. My family has a rich history of entrepreneurs. And I would in particular my father, once he got out of the military, expanded into the jewelry business back in the 80s. And I always remember going with him and being in the store, listening to him talk, interacting with customers, and there was always like laughter and these great conversations. And I didn't know at the time, but I was getting like a 101 master class on how to sell. And I started to subconsciously have a passion for sales and for ultimately, I think, solving people's problems, because that's what he would really do really, really good at, right? So started off with that, and during high school, working two jobs. I used to work at Chuck E. Cheese as my first job. Dancing in the Chucky outfit, which
Yes.
apparently was like the job to have at the time. And working as a host at a restaurant at the same time while I was graduating high school, man. And that taught me a lot of valuable lessons, while playing sports and being in different activities in high school and still graduating and all that. It just taught me to, really develop a different level of tenacity, of expectations for myself, but also, expectations for the people that counted on me and that I looked up to, right? And a sense of, giving them a sense of pride in the things that I was accomplishing, right? To validate that the lessons they've taught me through life were being learned. So, graduated high school and started my retail journey in big box retail. So I started off in Home Depot. Was started there as a lot associate, pushing shopping carts 8 hours a week part time, and ended up being there for 15 years as a general manager. And what a phenomenal company to have worked for. Great culture. Has taught me so much throughout the years. And I came into the fork of road of life, of what did I want to do different, and wanted to challenge myself into something I had never done, which at that point was the automotive industry. And at that point in my life, I joined CarMax, and I was with them for 5 years as a GM too. Had the pleasure of again being in a very esteemed company with a phenomenal culture, great training and development for their teams, and a great viewpoint on how to help customers. Right, so phenomenal experience there. I was able to really learn about not just sales but service, the used car industry, obviously reconditioning, just so many different aspects of the automotive world. The CarMax taught me a lot, and then had the great pleasure to work at my previous employer before coming to EVverything, which was Tesla. Was there for a couple of years, just a gamut of different roles and responsibilities through there, in that company. And also a crash course in not just electric vehicles but in servicing them, in driving customer satisfaction, really building out different plans to accomplish different goals that were very complex and often competed against each other, but ultimately to have a lot of success, in delivering a great product to customers, right, and meeting those expectations. And I think that my understanding of that culture is very startup-ish, very scrappy, but it just taught so much about what I was capable of still doing, because again the learning and the expectations colliding at the same time really forged a lot of people to be exceptionally great. And I really feel like that happened to me as well. So yeah, that led me now to EVverything. I think that when I look back at how I came across it, I think it's one of those things that the stars kind of aligned. I was just looking through some social media stuff, and I came across the page. I saw a video with John Ellis on it, and I said, okay, that's a pretty cool video. Interesting topics, and I started researching on what EVverything actually did, and I was like, whoa, I think this is what I've been looking for. I think this is what not only what I've been looking for, but what the industry has needed. And to your point, not just in EVs, but in general, right? And I think it's just an opportunity to teach and develop the automotive industry on how to sell one more car in educated conversations around EVs, hybrids, and ICE vehicles. I think that that's what really, like, it all just clicked for me. I was like, wow, I really believe that with my background and teachings and learnings that I've had over the years, I can really make a difference in the hundreds of thousands of people. And that's what really intrigued me, and really lit like this passion that I have for making and building great teams, man. So yeah, that's been my journey into getting to EVverything. Super excited.
That is a podcast show in itself, just the journey between those three companies that you worked at and what you can learn. But here specifically, we'll talk about how all that correlates just to your point in the direction that we're moving. And so, what I would like to know, because to get it right into it, is about leadership. Your thoughts on leadership, and so working for a company, a corporate, a business like a Tesla, working with a CarMax that has that structure and that system, and a Home Depot that has such a huge brand name. At the core of that, there's got to be some really big fundamentals of leadership because you're dealing with so much change. Like those are all three of those companies, I'm sure, are constantly doing change in order for them to stay relevant. So give us a couple of leadership principles that you've learned that through those companies that now you can apply both for yourself and at EVveryday, but also for the leaders listening to this, what they can learn from your experience.
Yeah, man, great question. I think that that's probably one of the areas that I'm probably most passionate about because I believe a lot in the inverted pyramid. If anybody listening hasn't heard of that, it's really where a CEO of a company is at the bottom of everything, right? When you look at a pyramid, usually the CEO's on top, and then the employees are all the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
But what I've learned over the years, man, and that's been very successful for me and my teams, is that I always look at myself in whatever role that I'm in as being on the bottom.
Yeah.
And my employees are always on top. They're the most important, right? So when I look at things, man, I think that being able to be a champion of change is very critical because, like you mentioned, man, these three companies are number one in what they do. Right. And it comes with a lot of expectations and results driven focus to work for companies like that and be successful in them. And what I would tell you that I learned is that you have to master change. You have to be an advocate of change, and you got to be really positive with those changes. So that would be one thing, is being a champion of change. I think that leading with your head, leading with your hands, and leading with your heart is fundamental. I think that, as a leader, not as a manager, because there's a distinct difference between the two, but as a leader, you're going to have to lead with your head, right? That's all your business aspects, your numbers, etc., your vision, things like that. But then you have to lead with your hands. And leading with your hands is working shoulder to shoulder with your team. There's times you got to roll up your sleeves and work alongside somebody and show them how to do something. You got to roll up your sleeves and work next to somebody so they can show you how to do something.
Yes.
And you got to be vulnerable, and you got to be okay with doing that if you want to be successful and have teams that are going to accomplish great things. And then leading with your heart. And I think that in today's day, that's really, not a thing anymore. But leading with your heart, man, is not about, being emotional or being, quote unquote soft or you're not having thick skin. Nah, man, it's about understanding people.
Yeah.
And I think that in all the three areas that I've worked in, but especially in the automotive industry, man, there's a lot of feelings in the automotive journey when it comes for customers and for employees, man. So you got to have a heart and really be able to listen to not only your team, but to your customers, to be able to really drive great changes to evolve and be the best at what you do. So I would say that's definitely a cornerstone of one of my principles. I'm a huge believer in paying things forward.
Yeah.
I still remember the first person that ever gave me an opportunity, not to date myself, but 20 plus years ago, that saw this, punk kid in a Home Depot parking lot, sweating, their butt off in the middle of summer in South Florida, with a heat index of 115 degrees, picking up trash and, having trash bags break on them when they're throwing it away and all the trash falling on them, and saying, hey man, like, when are you going to do something with your life and like try something different? I want to bring you into my department and show you how to do more things than what you're capable of. Thanks to that person, his name was Duke Perry, rest in peace. I learned that he passed away a long time ago, but Duke Perry was the first person that ever gave me an opportunity to be successful, man. And to this day, I think about people like that helped me and had challenging conversations and, pushed me to my limits, but, taught me so many things, man, from a people person approach that helped me be very successful, man. And I'm very passionate about paying things forward and giving people those opportunities and helping them see that you might be a diamond in the rough, but I can help you be the diamond. I can polish you out. but because I see this potential in you and having those conversations with people. So I think paying things forward is really another great principle, which, dovetails into never forgetting where you came from. I remember where I came from. I remember the difficult times of my life. I remember why I was in those difficult times in my life. And
Yep.
I've always learned from those things, man. But, I've also never forgotten the roles that I've been in, when I've had to clean the bathrooms, when I had to, just have some of the jobs that people didn't want, when I had to prep vehicles, when I had to wash them, when I had to, clean them because they came cross country full of mud and there was a delivery that we had to do. And I had to, everybody went home and I only had a few people, but I wanted my people to keep doing what they were doing. And I said, you
Yes.
know what? I got this for you. And I was out there cleaning the cars. It wasn't because, I wasn't going to do it because it was beneath me. I was going to do it because I wanted to show them that I'm not going to ask you to do something I haven't done. But I'm going to be here for you when you need me, because I'm always going to need you to be doing what you do really great. And that's my expectation. So never forgetting where I came from.
Yeah.
And then that just really, all of those things fall under the umbrella of my main principle, which is servant leadership, man.
Yeah.
I truly believe that, I work for my team. I work for my employees. And I have a responsibility to show up every day and be the best that I can. So that they know that when they need something, it's going to be done. When they need to talk to me about something, I'm going to be there to listen. And when they need advice, I'm going to do that. When they need to have the tough conversations, they're going to be there as well. And when it's time to recognize for all the exceptional work we're doing, we're going to do that as well too, man. So servant leadership, man, I think is really the umbrella where all those principles fall under. And I can tell you that once I understood that in my career, the doors just blew open for the possibilities for me, and the feedback that I received throughout the years just really helped me get to where I'm at today with Bev Everything.
Man, I've got so many notes from that. But those leadership lessons and the advice that you just gave, I'm at the hands, head, and the heart. I really enjoy that. The one area I feel that I've seen, especially in the conversations that I've been involved with from a consultant and a coach standpoint, is this expectations and results that you talked about. I cannot I cannot speak enough on how important that is. So if a leader's listening to that, I would encourage you to really lean in on that. Like, do you and your team really know what you're to expect? And it's like what the true expectations are, and then who is that person that's following up on the result, and then take it a step further. What happens when the results and the expectations aren't met? What happens there? And a lot of times we don't see that written out, especially in the automotive industry. But if you ever work corporate or been in that kind of corporate environment or structure, there's always a cause and effect. There's something that's going to happen if for some reason you decide to not do what you're supposed to. And so I want to take the leadership part a little bit further down the road, and let it hit home to people that are listening to this and like, okay, Andrew, that's great. How do I apply that to my team? So an example would be, Andrew, if you could walk us through like the hands, the head, and the heart. So a leader is listening to this right now that is struggling to get their team and themselves into, let's say, the education of EVs, right? So maybe it's just to get them not bought in, but to get them to understand that this is an option that's available for customers. And I want them to get bought in on understanding, how to explain the differences between an EV, an ICE, gas vehicle, or an hybrid. So how could you, using your formula of leadership of what you've learned, how could a leader apply that? If you could give an example of how they could apply that to communicate to their team, as simple as right after they watch this show.
Yeah, man, I think that that's a great question. And let's just break it down, right, to the head, hands, and heart. So let's start with the head. So if you're a leader listening to this, I would say look in the mirror.
Mm,
Look in the mirror. When you talk about getting your team bought into something, you can't have assumptions. You can't have bias. You can't have stigmas. You have to be the neutral voice, right? But if we want to talk about specifically about EVs, man, this is probably one of those products in this generation where it's so easy to either be political about it, to be negative about it, to go with what's popular in what you read that week in the internet, to lean onto what a specific influencer might want to say, or to, even tie it into agendas, worldwide agendas.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really strip it down, man, it's not that at all. That's just, things there for you to entertain and potentially trap yourself into. So what I would say is when you're talking about the head part is look in the mirror and say, where do you stand with this in particular? First of all, and then understand that you can't have any of those things, in your mind when you're going to talk about having your team to buy into something, because what they're going to buy into is whatever it is that you believe. So if you believe EVs are negative, dude, your team is going to believe EVs are negative and they're not going to talk about them, right? They're never going to get educated on them because they don't want to talk about them. And then ultimately, you're never going to sell them. And if you sold it, is by accident, right?
Yep.
So I would say look in the mirror, man. First thing, and then right with that is be vulnerable. You're going to have to be vulnerable to make an active change. And I think that that's probably one of the hardest lessons I learned over time was to be vulnerable, that it's okay to be vulnerable. It doesn't make you weak.
Right.
You got to be real strong to be vulnerable, and apply that vulnerability to learn, to allow yourself to learn. And once you're able to do that, man, then you can move into the section of educating yourself on how you would roll something like that out, right? Which is what EVverything is extremely good at, is giving you that guidance, giving you that knowledge base to be able to learn, to then execute the hands part.
Yep.
And the hands part is, how would you talk to your teams about it? Well, if you're asking me how I would do it, I definitely would not say, hey guys, I heard this really awesome podcast with Andrew and Durran. Starting tomorrow, we're going to sell EVs. No, it's not how you're going to do it. Nobody's going to listen to you, right? You got to go and talk to your people.
Yeah.
You got to sit down with them, have a round table or a town hall, whatever you want to call it, and ask them, how do you feel about EVs? How do you feel about our product lineup? How do you think that we're doing in helping you have the tools and resources to be successful at having confident conversations with customers to help you sell one more car?
Yep.
Because remember, when you hear me say one more car, I'm talking about an EV, a hybrid, or an ICE vehicle. I'm not talking about an EV. I'm talking about any one of those three. So you gotta get the information from the people on the ground. Those are the most important people. If you ever lose sight as a leader of those people, you're never going to be successful. You're always going to wonder why you have so much turnover, or you're always going to wonder why you have negative morale, or you're always going to wonder why people just don't do what you're asking them to do, and why you have so many employees and not enough team members. Because that's a real big significance. In my experience, when you have a lot of managers, you have a lot of employees. When you have a lot of leaders, you have a lot of team members. Huge difference, right? Mm-hmm. So once you solicit that information from your team, which is going to be probably raw, it's probably going to be some things you don't want to hear, okay? That's when your heart is going to have to come in. And you're going to have to remove all the emotions that you have and say, damn, let me strip down what my team's feedback has been, and let me formulate an action plan to help them accomplish what I need them to accomplish, to both be an industry leader in the automotive industry and to be an exceptional leader for them, so I can be as successful as possible. And by default, they're going to be as successful as possible. And then you equal all that into having the best customer experience location that there can be. So that's kind of like my rough draft of what I can recommend that people can do.
No, that's so good because I like at the very beginning that I even have it in my notes, and I'm sure the other leaders heard this, and some needed to hear it. Right? Is look in the mirror. Like a lot of times, change typically starts with us. Whatever direction we want to go, it starts with us. Then turning our employees, if that's what we have, into a team, and then think about what that does to the culture, the employee experience, and the customer experience. So I'm loving all this. So this next question I'm going to give is kind of two parts. Is one part because I know some people, especially if we're doubting the direction that the industry's going when it comes to EVs or just vehicles in general. But what do you see as the future and the vision for EVs? You know, so looking at that picture for EVs or hybrids as well, and then where do you see the vision for BEV everything to fit into the future of electric vehicles?
Yeah. So, man, I think if I had the true answer to that, I'd be doing something totally different, man. Because I think that it's just, man, the future of EVs it's so bright, and it's so big, um with the understanding that EVs are always not going to be for everybody,
Correct.
and that's okay. We understand that. We know that that's the reality. And I don't know at what point that would ever be the full gamut reality that EVs is the only thing that everybody wants.
Yep.
There is so much allure in your ICE vehicles, man. Like, you got your exhaust, you got the tinkering of the engine, you got so many different things of an ICE vehicle. Then you look at hybrids, man. You talk about the future of hybrids, man. That is, to me, I like to use that. I like to think of hybrids as um the the Goldilocks story of the automotive industry. That is probably the just right fit for a lot of people. When you look at what your daily mileage is in commuting, a hybrid satisfies the electric power that comes out of that. Like, so I think that you're going to see a lot of hybrids coming to market, right? I think through the traditional OEMs versus the first full only push on electric, right? I think you're going to see a mix of both. But I will tell you, man, like EVs, it's so bright, and they have so many great things about them, apart from, the climate, conversations that you can have about them. But I think that from performance, from technology, especially, and safety, man, it's almost like AI at this point, where you don't know how big it's gonna get because it's so constantly evolving. But I think that that's the great thing about it, that it's not a cookie cutter approach that, hey, this is what we're all gonna do, and everybody's trying to figure out, how do we do it great, but how do we do it great with how our customers want it to be great. And I think
That's
that
right.
that's the important part, is like really listening to, the dealership groups and the customers' feedback on how do we make these cars the best possible. So I'm really excited to see the nuances, and the evolution of EVs and hybrids in particular, and how do they really cater that to the masses? Because right now it's not at the masses, right? It's a very small percentage, but the one thing we can't deny is that year over year, the percentage of adoption keeps growing. I'm not worried about, did the world or did the US hit a certain percentage target that the news wants to put out there. All I care about is incremental movement.
That's
And where
right.
is it going? Is it going up or down? And it's definitely going up. So that's the key to remember, is that it's going to keep going up the more people feel comfortable um, engaging with the product. But most importantly of all, how comfortable dealer groups are comfortable talking and showing the product. Because once that part really takes off, customers are going to be very easily intrigued and more confident and comfortable in the product, because you were able to explain it to them correctly. Because now there's a lot of intimidation behind it, right?
Yep.
And whose job is it to help people not feel intimidated? It's the dealership's group's job to do that. Like you got to make the customer feel comfortable and confident in the questions that they're asking you and within the responses that you're giving, but more importantly, in how you're demoing the product
Yeah.
and the knowledge that you have behind it. So, I think that the future is going to be so exciting, dude. Like, it's just such a unique time in our lives. You can kind of like look back in time and see some of these different changes that happened that are very similar. You look at cell phones, or actually not even that. Let's start with the internet, right? You had the internet,
Yep.
right? You had landline phones that switched to mobile. Then you had mobile phones that went from like, bricks, to like, Palm Pilots and Blackberries and flip phones to iPhones and Androids, right? So like look at all these evolutions that nobody thought would ever happen. And we are in the early stages of the vehicle transformation of what that landscape is going to look like. And again, I don't foresee in the near future there's going to be all electric vehicles. But most importantly, there's going to be so many options now for you to find. It's almost like trying to get like a custom suit or a custom pair of shoes or whatever it is, whatever bespoke custom item that you can think of. You're going to be able to almost get a vehicle like that now where it just fits right. It just feels like the right fit for you. And that is what excites me the most, man. I think everybody deserves that opportunity to own one of the most expensive purchases of their life, and have it really be a great fit,
Absolutely. And it's what's really unique in what you're saying, some of the things that I have written down, but one thing that's so important is the options part, right? Because there's gonna be some people that really want to get into a BEV, like they're ready. They think they know it, or they think they really want a hybrid, or they really think they want an ICE. They want a fuel vehicle, right? They want gas. But then knowing that they can talk to somebody that understands what's best for them based on what they've said, and if they are pointing towards one direction that makes no sense, like let's say hybrid just doesn't really make sense to them for what they're trying to do, and they're ready to go to that full step based on what they've said, knowing how to talk about that is so important. I feel that's the part that's really missing in our industry. It's like, let's take our own feelings and thoughts about it and let's really focus on the customer experience and what's important to them. And so it kind of leads me to the next question, is about innovation, because I feel that the dealer body that are a little bit more innovative, it seems to me that they're probably a little bit more open, especially the clients that we've seen. The innovative ones that are always into like what's new, what's tech. They're opening up the doors for the EV space, and they're welcoming it with open arms. But what is your thoughts on innovation? Like, where do you see dealers have an opportunity to innovate themselves, and then how can EVveryday help them with some of those innovative ideas and strategies?
Yeah. So, I've learned throughout my career, man, that if you don't evolve, you become extinct.
Yep.
Right. Evolution is key. And I think that that's where I told you that change management, you have to be a champion of change. Like you have to be really good at pivoting, and adopting change to be successful. And I think that I'm going to answer, your question backwards, and it was part of the previous question you asked me is like, what is the vision of EVveryday? And my vision for EVveryday is to develop an industry leading brand that adds value to dealer partners and enhances experiences for their associates and their customers.
Oh, wow.
And when I think of that, it's talking about bringing top tier and leading industry expertise, services, and products that will help dealer partners demystify. I think there needs to be a lot of demystification and navigate through the evolving BEV market. So that's the vision, And when you talk about technology, technology is not going anywhere. If anything, there is an explosion of technology change in today's day, and the way that we're going to be able to help, execute that vision and help dealer partners is by building great teams. We're going to have a phenomenal team built in EVveryday that's going to be able to help deliver not only the products and the services, but the roadmaps to be successful. Because I've always known that great teams win championships.
Yes.
It's never an average team. So building teams has always been a cornerstone for me, and it's a passion of mine, because when you surround yourself around successful people, you're going to be successful. And I can assure you that EVveryday is going to be successful. So I feel confident that we're going to be able to deliver a high level of success for the dealer partners that understand that there has to be change in order to be successful, especially in today's day with the emerging hybrid and EV marketplace. So when I think of that, like, how do we build these teams to help deliver those results? Is ensuring that we have a diverse team, man. I think that one of the lessons that I've learned is you can't have people around you that think the same. You can't. You're not going to be successful. Like, if everybody thinks the same, you're always going to want to hear what you want to hear, and you're never going to be able to challenge the status quo. You're not going to be able to have people that think differently and say, hey, well, how about this or how about that? So to me, having a diverse team that have different walks of life, different experiences in industries, I think that is critical, because I've seen some of the best salespeople, some of the best leaders in the automotive industry that never had worked in the industry prior.
That's right.
And I can remember in the days that I was selling cars, in the day that I was in the service lanes talking to customers, there was a lot of people that had a certain mindset because they've had years and years and years and years of doing the same thing that have never really been challenged to think differently.
Yep.
So to me, I think having a diverse team to help bring these visions to life is going to really help dealers see things in a different way. But again, I go back to being able to change, being able to be vulnerable and listening to different ideas to challenge the status quo to be successful, because I know that there are a lot of groups out there that are doing really well with EVs.
Yep.
And I know that they're doing it because they're thinking of it differently, because they're allowing to test and try different things and measure those results and see, okay, what ultimately works great for our customers and for us to be able to execute that.
Yeah.
So, I would tell you that, that would be the vision and also the innovation strategy behind what we're going to be bringing to the table to help dealers make a smoother transition, but you got to be willing and able to listen, collaborate, and really formulate a plan together to help you be the most successful you can be and provide the world-class experience that your group expects to deliver to their customers, so that you can have that book of business just coming back over time and over time again, because you're the sought after place to have the best experience possible.
Oh, this is so good, because we're touching on so many things that are important, and I'm hearing change a lot, and I'm going to give everybody just a real quick snippet of how important change is. And if you don't like change, how stressful it can be. So just being transparent, before this show, I was already using a different software to record these shows when we have guests or having a community call or a podcast show, whatever we want to call it. And so Andrew and I pop on, and we don't like the look and feel of what we're trying to do, right? So there's something that we need out of the software that it's not doing. And we literally spent 30 minutes researching all these different companies that could provide us with a better software to record this show. And we made a change like that, like to where one subscription got canceled, new subscription started, we learned how to do it, we hit record, and now here we are. And that's a lot of change that for some people, they probably would have stuck with what they originally had. They're like, nah, let's just Let's just stick with what
That's
we
what
have.
it could be. That's what I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to drop this line for everybody. All right. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's it.
You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. Because Durran, if it wasn't, maybe you wanted to make the change, but maybe I was feeling uncomfortable that you were making the change. And then I could have thrown you off from making the change, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened? We both said, all right, let's try it. We both said, yeah, let's go ahead and see what happens. And then boom. So I think that when we look at what it's going to take to help, dealer groups sell one more car is going to have to be that collaboration,
Yes.
that mutual understanding of that. Hey, we're probably going to talk about some uncomfortable things. We might try some things that might be unconventional for you, but you have the assurance that what you're going to try has been tried and true in the industry.
Yep.
And has been ultra successful. And I think that if you can build that trust, and that's the only ask is just, hey, let us show you what we got. And I feel confident that you're going to be able to be as successful as you want to be. And I think that's going to come down to what the question for the dealer groups is going to be, and partners, is how successful do you really want to be?
Yeah.
And if you want to be really successful, we're going to give you that roadmap to do it. It's almost like you're setting your own limit for yourself. So yeah, man, that's a great example in real time. Like, how we had to pivot and change, and then boom, here we are.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I thought that was a good story, and I'm glad that you added context to it, because I'm not gonna lie, there was a little slick anxiety there for me, because I've been using the software that we had before when we jumped on. I've been using this software since 2020, right? So I'm like, this is what I've been doing, but I knew I wanted to make a change, and Andrew easily made it like, man, let's just make a change real quick. And we tried a couple options. So I want to, we got about 2 questions left. And this one's really important because we've spent a lot of time on leadership, but now I know we have some high-level salespeople that are listening to this, and we have some entry-level salespeople that are listening to this, and they're like, man, you guys don't understand what it's like. I'm on the ground level. I'm dealing with these customers. I'm dealing with the objections. But what I see a lot of times is a lack of confidence that some people have in how to answer those questions. And a mentor and the boss that I worked for, my tenure on the retail side when I was running a dealership, his name is Mr. Vines. And he had this saying. He would say, in order to sell something, you need to be enthusiastic. But in order to be enthusiastic, you need to have confidence. And then in order to have confidence, you must have knowledge, because they kind of build on top of each other. Like, once you know, and then once you have confidence, then it's like you can be who you naturally really want to be. And so the question I have for you, Andrew, is, if I'm a salesperson listening to this and I want to restore and I want to get my confidence level up to where I can be that EV person, but not just an EV person, somebody that is ready, they're able to discuss whatever option a customer wants to discuss. What's a good path for them to take to get to that confidence level and to feel more comfortable to be a successful salesperson, regardless of what kind of vehicle the customer wants?
Yeah, great question. I mean, look, man, I understand that fully. I can tell you that when I came into the automotive industry, man, I didn't know anything about selling cars.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that, came from an industry where, he was managing hundreds and hundreds of associates, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And I had to transition to selling cars. I've never done.
Yeah.
So all I can do, man, is share my personal experience. And I want people to remember that, if you listen to the beginning of the show, I don't forget where I come from. And I think that, CarMax did a great experience for me where it put me through, a rigorous training program where I had to sell cars. I had to sell 20 cars in a month.
Yeah.
And I never sold a car. And what I can tell you, man, what I learned is that, it's really not that different from the leadership analogy that I gave, man. But if you want to be that associate, if you want to be that number one salesperson, or you just want to be that confident salesperson, is you got to look in the mirror.
Yep.
You got to look in the mirror and say, who am I hanging out with during the day? Am I at the water cooler or by the coffee bar talking to the guys that, been here X amount of years that, are always talking negatively? Or do I want to be the guy that wants to separate from the pack and surround yourself around successful people to be successful? And I'll tell you, that's what I did in CarMax, man. I purposely sought out who were the top salespeople, and I wanted to learn from them. And I hung around them, and I said, "Hey, man, show me how to do this. Hey, do you mind if I, hang around you while you're talking to a customer, while you're doing a walk around? Do you mind if I do this?" And I would always ask, and you'd be surprised when you ask, like how many times you say people tell you, yeah. Because when you don't ask, you're always going to get a no. It's always a no. So if you ask, you're probably going to get a yes. So I think that the fact that, I was humble enough and vulnerable enough to ask for help was huge. Because I know that, especially in today's day with EVs in particular, your instinct might go to ask a manager or whatever, but maybe you don't have that structure and that education yet in your rooftop where they can help you do that, right? So I'm specifically talking about what you can do for yourself is partner around the successful people that are around you. And more importantly, make sure that they're positive.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, man, you got to do your own homework.
Yep.
I will tell you that, coming into Tesla, I knew nothing about electric vehicles. Best darn be sure I had to learn real quick. I mean, real quick. And I can tell you, I don't know how many YouTube videos, I don't know how many, I looked up all these, people that review Teslas and, give specs and all these, I don't know how many videos I saw to catch up. But more importantly, I really spent time inside of the vehicles.
Yeah.
I would come in early, I'd go home late, and I would sit in those vehicles and I would press every button. I'd go into every option. Okay. And I learned that car like I know my cell phone. And I think that those two experiences where I had to really hyper learn and more importantly, be successful and deliver results, those two things colliding made me realize how much faster I can learn things and which way to kind of cut time on how I learned them. So interacting with the product and surrounding yourself around functional experts of what you're doing. And remember, those functional experts can be either virtually or it can be in person. Those two things together, there's no way you cannot be great at having conversations with customers. There's no way that you can be great, at being an expert in EVs or hybrids or ICE vehicles. You can use that same model to everything else. So that's what I would say, man. I mean, if I got people like that listening to this show, man, is, you got to be vulnerable. You got to look in the mirror and say, hey, what can I do? What can I do to be the best? And then, the last thing I would say, man, is just solicit feedback, solicit feedback from people that you feel comfortable with. Maybe there's some peers of yours that are mentors, ask them, for feedback about what you're doing, or maybe have somebody, see an interaction of yours and deliver you some feedback, or maybe ask your managers, man, to provide you some feedback, in the ideal world, you're having, one-on-ones, or you're having check-ins frequently to discuss, how you're doing and things like that. But, there's definitely a plethora of ways to solicit feedback to help you be better.
Oh, I love that. And one thing that I would just piggyback on, if I'm a salesperson listening to this and it's like, where do you get started? What's something that you can do is, man, when you're playing with these products, no different than our cell phone, like what Andrew talked about, is just go out and play and have fun in them too. I've been to multiple different dealerships where a salesperson who's all fired up and engaged about this new electric vehicle that's coming in, like, man, have you been in it? Like, have you driven one yet? No, I'm good, man. No, you got to get in it. Like, come on. And when you get out and drive some of these vehicles that are out here, it's ridiculous the experience that you get. And so sometimes I know many of us, we need to touch, feel, see. And so I would encourage you to do that because it's exciting because to me, there's never been a better time to want to sell vehicles because now you've got so many options and the technology and the innovation is so great. And then, my content mind, all that excitement can turn into content, and then you can create conversations through that. But I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole because Andrew's given us a lot of great insights, great information. And so, my last question is really big picture. I know we talked earlier about the vision, but give us your picture, 5 years from now. So it's 2029 going into 2030. What is Andrew doing? What is Andrew doing? What is the industry possibly doing? And what's EVveryday looking like? So give us a peek of what you see out there.
Yeah, man. Exciting question to think about. The industry, man, 10 years from now, or let's say 5-10 years from now, is gonna be it's gonna be amazing. Again, I really feel like people are gonna be in the best time of their lives for options when it comes to transportation, when it comes to vehicles. It's just gonna be such a cool time to be in and to experience in this lifetime, right? So I definitely see a plethora of options when it comes to EVs. There's definitely going to be a lot of more options of hybrids as well. And I definitely believe that even the ICE vehicles are really going to evolve into changing certain aspects of them to be appealing to EV and hybrid buyers and vice versa. I mean, you're seeing them now, like, how many new vehicles now that are traditional muscle car or, really performance driven vehicles that are having a little bit of performance boost from an electric battery. Come on, man. Like, I mean, when I think of like, supercars and, just like these behemoth cars that are just known for performance. Like I was just reading last night about the new G-Wagon. I was just like, you're doing what? Like you would have never expected that, it's gonna be such, I mean, anybody that enjoys driving a vehicle, it's just gonna be probably one of the best times to ever experience them now. I would say I would rival that to when like the muscle car era started. I think that was probably the last time it was really awesome to like go through the whole car scene. Now this is going to be the next one, so that's where I see, 5-10 years from now, where we're going to be in the industry is just, so bright, and so exciting. When it comes to me and EVveryday, man, look, just being fully transparent, I've only worked for the best of the best, man. Again, industry leaders in everything that they did and that they currently do. And EVveryday will be the industry leader in automotive consulting. We will be the place for the best products, services, and experience in the industry, hands down. That's going to be my commitment to everybody in the automotive industry, because we're going to be real people. We're going to be transparent in everything that we do. If you haven't heard it yet, we're going to have a great vision, high level of execution, high level of resilience and tenacity to help, most importantly, going back to head, hands, heart, and paying things forward, helping all of the auto dealer groups transition and help them be as successful as possible in the industry going forward as it evolves. That's my commitment and my vision for the next 5-10 years, man.
Let's go. I don't know. Let me see this new platform. Does it have sound effects? No, it's got background music. That would have been where
I'll do it. There you go, guys. Give me a little.
I'm gonna have to. Let's see. What does this do? Yeah, that won't do it. That's night music, dance pop. Yep, none of those work. But I was so Andrew got me thinking when he was talking, so I didn't mean to like look off camera, but it made me think because I'm sitting here. That's a tough question to actually answer. To be able to talk. I don't know if anybody listening to this, if you've ever been asked that question, what does it look like 5, 10 years from now? Because you have to be very careful with how you answer that question, because a lot of this will be on YouTube and you can go back and see. But what I would add to what Andrew was saying is, look at your phone, right? And this is what made me think, this cell phone here. I think this is the iPhone 13 or 12. I'm not sure. My son would light me up if he like, Dad. But when what made me think about it was like, what phone was out 20 years ago, right? And I did it, and it said Nokia, a Nokia 1100, whatever phone that was, out 2003, 2004. And then I'm seeing all these little Nokias, right? And then you think, okay, no, that's too far. Think about 5 years ago. And then when you look at just some of the best smartphones in 2015, that was actually 9 years ago, was the Apple iPhone 6. And so I say all that to kind of button all this up. Most of us didn't think much about an iPhone when it came out. Most of us didn't think much about a BlackBerry when it came out. It's like every single one of those innovations got met with, it's not that important. It's not, whatever. And then it continually evolves little by little by little, and little by little, each person starts becoming open. Minds start changing and problems get solved. And so I want to challenge you to be thinking about that. Like, think about the technology that you played around with 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years from now, or 10 years ago. How much has that evolved? Now think about the EVs of today and how much they're going to evolve in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Think about the battery life. Think about the infrastructure. So that's 5 years from now, to me, in my opinion, is being created right now with the decisions that we're making. That how we're thinking and how we're keeping ourselves open or closed to what innovation and technology is out there. Your 2029, that's a hard one to say. Your 2029 is being developed as we speak. And so with that, I do have 2 fun fact questions before we close this show. And no, they were not in what I told Andrew I would talk to him a little bit about. But these are good for me too, because again, I'm learning and growing my relationship with Andrew. So I would like to know, what is one fun fact about you that most people don't know that you are open to sharing publicly that you can share. But what's a fun fact about you that's pretty cool?
I don't know if it's cool, but I'll share a fun fact, man. So I actually used to be a trained opera singer.
Oh,
yeah. Not only that, but I had a pretty big upbringing in music in particular. So not only was I trained for opera, but was also trained to play violin and piano, and thoroughly enjoyed making beats and rewriting music before it was cool. Yeah.
Oh man, it's a wrap. I got to send this to my boy Corey Payton, hardcore, out in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we used to rap. I let my little fun fact out years ago that I used to rap in high school. So we rapped in high school, rapped in college, and he produced beats. So he actually made music and he could sing. But I've never met in my life a male opera singer that I actually now have in my network that actually did that. So I'm going to get with him and be like, dude, now we can come up with a cool track. He knows how to do beats. You know how to do beats. You've got a voice. We can rap. We can sing. And we can,
hey man, I only sing in the shower now, man, because I can't even sing in the car with the family, dude. So it's just in the shower. But it's funny that you bring up the fun fact about your rapping. Is I remember in high school at the talent shows, we had a acapella quartet, and we would always be in competition with the rappers. It was like the 2 groups that was like at the end, at the finals, like which one's gonna win. So that's kind of actually funny that you say that, dude, because I was always like our competition, like, man, we got really good rappers, man. Like we gotta go up against them, and like those auditoriums would be lit when those 2 finalists would come out, man. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then my last question, because I've always wanted to ask somebody else this, because I've been asked this a lot, is it's that, if you had one day to kick it with somebody, but I'm gonna put a caveat when I ask that question, because my first thing that comes out when I answer it, I'm always thinking about my family because of time. It's like, if you could spend one day with somebody, I'm like, dude, can I just get one day with my wife without distractions and craziness and kids all over the place? But so I asked you if you could spend one day and kick it, or a few hours, whatever, with anybody in the world outside of your family network or current circle, who would that be?
Sheesh.
Yes. Got a
Man,
pause out of Andrew, everybody. That means I asked a good one.
man, to kick it. Oof.
Yeah.
I got to think about this one, man, 'cause that's important because you get such limited amount of time um with such big thinkers sometimes, right? And it all depends on what you want to know, man. But I'm probably going to give a little bit of an unconventional answer.
Okay.
I would say, and I wouldn't want a lot of time because I know that this particular time would be a lot in a short amount. But I would probably say I'd want like 15 minutes with God.
Oh wow. I love that.
Yeah, I would really like to understand a lot in a short amount of time. Because look, man, I think that in today's day, there's so much that you can learn from some great people. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you look at, you know, I'll just talk about, like the three CEOs that I've worked for, and I mean, in today's day, there's just so much publication of what they know,
Yeah.
right? Or what they do, or even like, even in today's day about social media, there's so much that, you know, people talk about that are great minds. You talk about TED Talks, you talk about events, etc. Like there's so many things that you can learn from today's people um virally that, if I really had to invest my time, which is very valuable, I would say that it needs to be something a little bit higher
Yeah.
than anybody physical today, at least. Because if not, if we're talking about it historically, man, there's a lot of great historical figures I wouldn't mind maybe like just picking their brain on things. Like, I'd probably go back to like the Roman Empire and understand like,
Yeah.
how they structured everything and all those things like that, or go back to the Egyptians and see like, hey man, how'd you guys build these pyramids? Like that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, man, I would definitely say 15 minutes with God, dude, I think would be awesome.
Man, amen. I'm all in on that, because yeah, that will get some questions answered. And when that happens, let me know so you can send me a text, be like, hey bro, I got some game for you. That 15 minutes we got. I asked you some questions and here's some answers. So
Yeah.
well, this was great. I thank you, Andrew, so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, your heart, your love, everything with us, because I know it was felt. I felt it, and I know many of the listeners will have felt it and will feel it for those that haven't seen it yet. So, if anybody wants to connect with you, Andrew, or either learn more about you, Bev, everything, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, man. So definitely check me out on LinkedIn. You can find me through there. Feel free to send me a message. I can definitely tell you check out our website, beveverything.com. Also on LinkedIn on Bev Everything, you'll be able to have access to our clubhouse calls that we host and that we repost on there to re-listen. So for all of you that just want to get some insight, replay our calls that we have, or especially join every other Tuesdays when we have them. You'll get some great conversations through there. But I'm pretty easily accessible, so the best form of contact will definitely be through LinkedIn right now.
Good deal. I'm right there with you. So, all right, everybody. Thank you all so much for your time. And hey, if you could share this out with a friend, give us some comments, some feedback, shoot us an email. You can reach me as well at Durran at beveverything.com, or you can, obviously, the easiest way, just like with Andrew, I'm always on LinkedIn, so you could hit me up there. But thank you so much. Wishing you all the best. Enjoy the rest of your day. As always, keep it electric and have fun. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, man.